Hello everyone and welcome to the very long awaited DVC video.
It's been a little while.
I feel like this has been years in the making, or people asking for it, so we are finally sitting down and making this video all about DVC, and we're doing it in the form of a Q&A. So I asked for questions over on Instagram and you guys delivered with the questions. We had a lot of questions. I bought my DVC directly from Disney. Becky bought hers on the resale market, so between us we should be able to hopefully answer all your questions. We're going to do our best. On that note, we are going to have to be quite quick moving through them because we did get so many, and if we're answering a question and you're thinking to yourself, oh, but what about this, what about that, the chances are we're going to answer it later. So I've written all the questions out and I've tried to cover everything. So if it doesn't feel like a complete answer, or there's more that you want to know, keep watching, because the chances are the question will be answered.
We'll cycle round to it.
Yes, we'll get to it. We will try and get to it. So on that note, we're going to get right into these questions. So one thing that somebody did ask is just a brief overview of what Disney Vacation Club is, because some people don't even know. Effectively, Disney Vacation Club, or DVC as you will hear us refer to it, is a timeshare. Ultimately, that's what it is. However, it does not work in the same way as a traditional timeshare. So a traditional one is where you have your 1 week in a certain hotel and then off you go your week of the year, and that's yours. It's not really like that with Disney Vacation Club. It's a lot more flexible. You can choose different resorts. You don't have to go at a certain time of year, but the actual kind of idea behind it is the same as a timeshare. So effectively, when Disney build one of these new DVC resorts and people are buying into it, you are buying like a real estate interest in that resort, and that money is then kind of reinvested to build more resorts. So it's kind of, that is what it is ultimately.
It's kind of like owning property, sort of.
Yes.
You're given an amount of points rather than a week here, a week there, and it costs varying different amounts of points per place, per time of the year. So you can kind of try and maximise your points by staying somewhere that's cheaper value per point in out of season. Whereas if you wanted to stay in the most expensive place on Christmas Eve,
Christmas week,
then it's obviously going to be a lot more points per night. So that's basically how it works, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a flexible timeshare type of thing, I would say. So the number one question that I got, and I did get asked the same questions a lot of the time, so I kind of condensed them down. How much does it cost? I think that is the first thing that everybody...
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you want to know.
Everybody wants to know. That's what everyone wants to know. And as Becky mentioned, it's done on a points basis. So you purchase a certain amount of points, and then those points you use for your vacations. In terms of the cost, when you buy in per point. So let's just say, for argument's sake, it was $1 a point. It is not $1 a point.
In dreamland.
In dreamland, say it was. And you were buying 100, obviously then it would be $100. So you are purchasing per point. Now the cost per point varies based on lots of different things. Yeah. We're going to talk about resale versus buying from Disney. Like I say, that is two different things, and that is virtually the same thing as buying a brand new house or
buying from a person.
Buying from a person, yeah, same thing. But in terms of the points, you can choose how many to buy. Disney have over the years upped the amount that you have to buy as a minimum. So when I bought in, you could buy, I think, as low as 50. They didn't advertise that, but when we actually did go and find out about it, they would have let us do that. As it was, we bought a few more. I know other people who have bought direct from Disney and purchased 80 points and stuff like that. As I understand it at the moment, the minimum is 150.
It's a big jump up, isn't it?
Which is a big jump up. And I don't know whether that would be the case if you actually went to see the people at DVC and discussed it with them, whether there is any movement on that, but as it's advertised now, it is 150 as a minimum. If you're purchasing with resale, then you are purchasing a contract that is already in existence, if that makes sense. So like Becky was saying, you're basically buying it from another person who has already owned that contract, so you can only shop around for existing contracts. So you might see some that are 80 or 100 or 150 or 200 or whatever it might be. You need to sort of decide how many you need. We'll come on to that a bit later. And yeah, you pay per point. So I purchased mine 10 years ago now. And the thing with DVC, it goes up every single year. So the earlier that you bought in, the better position
more value, I guess.
Yeah, the more value that you have. So people who bought into Old Key West, say, in 1994, they're probably loving life right now, because I don't know what they would have paid back then, but it wouldn't have been very much compared to now, and they're still now using those vacation points. Again, we're going to come on to how long you get them for, how long you can use them for, and stuff like that. So cost-wise, when I purchased mine 10 years ago, I did write this down, it was $138 per point to buy into the Grand Floridian Resort, which was brand new at the time when I purchased mine. And you purchased yours resale.
So we got ours resale, so you can basically decide which resort you want to buy from. We knew that we wanted our home resort to be Animal Kingdom Lodge.
Of course.
And we'll talk about why home resort matters or doesn't matter. We knew that we were always going to want to stay in the Animal Kingdom Lodge, so we decided Animal Kingdom Lodge was our home resort. So then basically you're looking at the contracts that are available to buy right now. You can organise them. There's many reselling websites out there. We got ours through Resale DVC. I will double check that, but that's who we bought ours from. And you basically find it costs more per point if people have banked some points, because you're basically kind of getting last year's points as well.
And we'll talk about that as well later on, banking and borrowing.
So we got ours for, you can negotiate, they advertise the price they're selling at, and then there is wiggle room. I believe we got ours for $131 per point for our 100 points that we bought.
So that just goes to show, mine was 10 years ago, and it was actually a little bit more than Becky has paid, and you only bought yours fairly recently.
Yeah, August last year.
Yeah, so resale is significantly cheaper than buying directly with Disney, but again, we're going to talk about the difference between buying resale, because you must be sat there thinking, why on earth would you buy from Disney then? We'll come on to that.
And what is Disney at the moment?
So Disney at the moment is $217 per point. That's 217, not 70. And in terms of how it works with what you're buying from Disney, you can only buy what they have available at this moment in time. So they're usually selling the more recent resorts that have recently been
Riviera at the moment.
So Riviera. Also, I don't know about Grand Floridian. That's sold out now, I believe. Maybe not. I don't know. I can't. Things like that, Becky and I are not going to know, because obviously we've already bought ours.
We don't work for DVC.
Yeah, you will have to go to get very up to date information. I think Alani they still have available for sale. That's the one out in Hawaii. But you can't necessarily go and just buy in immediately to the boardwalk, say, because that's been a long way off. However, Disney do actually have some inventory of contracts at those resorts that they can sell you directly. So it's kind of like they're selling it on the resale market. It will be a contract that somebody bought a long time ago, but Disney they've basically sold it back to Disney. So if you wanted the boardwalk and you wanted to buy directly from Disney, you would have to have a look at what they've got, and they may have a few contracts that suit what you want to purchase. One thing that I will mention, which is a huge difference though between buying direct and buying resale. Generally, if you are buying resale and you're wanting to buy into a certain resort, so let's take the boardwalk as an example. When you buy DVC, we alluded briefly to contracts, like the contract length. When Disney build a new DVC resort, the lease is 50 years as standard. So every new resort, it will be 50 years. If you purchase straight away when that resort is new, you will get a 50-year lease. However, if you bought it 10 years later, you only get 40 years, but you still have to pay whatever the going rate is, if that makes any sense. So from Disney, if they're selling it for $217 a point, so when we bought in, we did have a look at the boardwalk because we would have quite liked that. But the fact was, we'd have been paying, so what did I say? It was $138, I think, at the time. We would have had to have paid $138 per point to get 100 points at boardwalk. We would have had to pay the same to get Grand Floridian, but we would have got 10 more years. Yeah. So for us, we were thinking, I would quite like the boardwalk, but I'd much rather have
an extra 10
years than I would have that resort. So the length of the term doesn't change. So when the resort is brand new, it's got a 50 years lease, and then whenever you buy in, you have only got it for as long as that lease
has got left on
it.
So ours, I think, in Animal Kingdom Lodge, I believe it's 37 years. We've got.
I think I wrote it down. I did write it down actually. So Animal Kingdom lodges till 2057. So you will have yours till 2057, and Grand Floridian is 2064. so I will have mine till then. So although obviously Becky paid a little bit less than I did 10 years later, but obviously it is a shorter amount of time. So I know this is confusing, and whenever I've tried to explain DVC before, and a lot of you guys have said you find it confusing, it kind of is confusing. I'm just going to say that and not sugarcoat it. It is confusing when you're trying to explain all the ins and outs. The reason a lot of people end up a bit kind of mind boggled is because it is complicated until you get your head around it. There's no two ways about it. But that's basically the cost that you are looking at per point. So we're going to talk about other costs in a minute. We're going to talk about how you actually buy in. But if you're just wanting to know how much does it cost. So when we talk about that per point, so if you add that together, so say you're buying 100 points and it's $213 per point, that's quite a lot of money.
$21,300.
Yes. So that amount of money, you have options of how you actually pay for it. So the first option is that you would just have that sitting in the bank, and then you go to Disney and you
down
say,
the back of the settee, like everyone does, right?
here's my money, I want to buy in. You may not have all of the money up front, and you might want to finance it. With DVC, I would say if you think of it in a similar way to buying a car or a house, it is basically. So you can either buy it outright if you have the money, but for most people, they don't have the money to buy, certainly not a house, but maybe a car. But sometimes you don't. You have to get finance or a loan or whatever, and it's exactly the same thing for DVC. So you can either choose to take finance with Disney. That's what I did for mine. You could choose to save it up yourself or use your savings or whatever and pay all in one go. You could choose to go to your bank in the UK and get a personal loan for the amount that you need and finance it that way. You'd probably get a better interest rate doing that than you would directly. You almost certainly would, than doing it directly with Disney. So yeah, the big chunk that you have to pay to buy these points, it's up to you whether you finance it or you have the money or whatever. But once you've paid that, you have purchased the points, if that makes sense. So you don't pay that again at any point. That is a one-off upfront to buy those points. And then we'll talk about the other costs as you go along. There are closing fees, I think, as well. That you have to pay.
That's kind of like if you imagine it as your estate agent fees, fees or
solicitors fees or whatever,
or that sort of thing. So when you're buying resale, the price is advertised, you negotiate the price per point. Then there is always closing fees, and there was a fee obviously to transfer that amount of money into dollars in a secure way. So I think you can do finance kind of agreements maybe with some of the people that you're buying the DVC points sort of via, but again, it's just like getting a bank loan or whatever, or using your savings or however. You are agreeing to pay a person an amount of money. How you get that money is obviously very dependent on your circumstances, really. Yeah, effectively, if you're buying resale, you need to have that money to give to the person you're buying it from. As Becky said, whether you finance that via a loan or you've got the money, whatever is happening. With Disney, it's a little bit different because you can use their finance, but it's kind of the same thing. It's just, it is a more expensive product for finance than otherwise it might be. So that is just in terms of the actual cost of actually buying in. So we'll come on to it a bit later, talking about how you do it, because I don't want to lose track of our questions, because like I say, I have got them specifically written down. So next question was, how does the buy-in process work when you buy from Disney? So that's what I did. You can go, you've probably seen around the parks, they have the little kiosks for Disney Vacation Club. There's cast members there who can explain it to you. You often see all kinds of advertising around Disney about Disney Vacation Club. They do have a preview centre at Disney Saratoga Springs, is the main one, and there they have a huge building where they have lots of different little offices that you can go in, and they will explain all the finances, all the amount, how it all works and everything. And you can also do a little tour of the DVC rooms. They have like the mock rooms set up, which is really cool. I would recommend doing that if you're even a tiny bit interested. Go and do that tour, and don't be frightened that, oh, it's like a normal timeshare, we're going to get kind of locked in a room until we sign up. No, it is absolutely no pressure. They don't need to sell this to you. You already want to buy it. It's, you're already at Disney, you're already keen. They don't need to hard sell this. And
there is no hard sell.
They absolutely do not hard sell. No. They will pick you up from anywhere in Disney property, or that was my experience anyway. Because when we were last there, me and my husband went for the DVC tour, kind of, I guess, knowing we weren't actually likely to buy from Disney directly, but I wanted him to see what it was all about. They'll pick you up from anywhere on the property, and they will drop you off anywhere on property.
Yeah.
So it's really fun and interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're talking to people that know all about it. So would recommend doing that if
Yeah.
you've got even a slight interest in this.
And you can arrange that through any of the kiosks in the parks. A lot of the resorts do have a DVC desk. You can call them from your in-room phone, whichever hotel you're in. So if you want to arrange that, they, like Becky said, will come and get you and drop you off afterwards and everything. But there's no hard sell. You are not going to be there thinking, oh my gosh, I feel obligated to sign up to thousands of dollars. No,
It's absolutely not.
no, it's not like that at all. And they will take you around the little mock-up rooms, and you can see exactly the kind of rooms that you would be staying in if you had DVC. So just to tell you my experience of it, we bought in 2013. We did the tour at the beginning of the trip. We went away and thought about it, looked at our finances, worked out if we can afford it and all that kind of thing. And then towards the end of the trip, we went back to the DVC centre to actually sign up. And that was very exciting, as you can imagine. And when you're there, so you can actually do it while you're on your vacation, you will have to put a down payment. Again, very similar to a house or a car. So you pay a deposit or a down payment, and then the rest of it is either financed or maybe you're just paying the whole lot in one go, depending on your circumstances. There's paperwork to fill in. You do all of that while you're there. Then when you've come away from your vacation, because we were at the end of ours, so there is some paperwork which will then come to you in the post once you're back home, and then you receive the deeds to the property and everything. But the actual signing up process is very quick and easy. It does not take very long to do at all. If you're taking the Disney finance, you can do that even if you are in the UK. You can use the finance through Disney. You don't have to be resident in the United States to use their finance, which is good. But as I say, just watch the interest rate, because chances are you could get a cheaper interest rate if you financed it through a personal loan, but you may or may not be in the position to do that. You might be happy with what Disney are offering.
I think from memory, and this is, you know, using my brain, not a huge and reliable source sometimes, I think it was about 12.5% interest.
I think it is something like that.
If you took the Disney loan there at the time, it's 12.5%, which may be fine if you're in other countries and that's normal, but considering that we could have got the same kind of finance for about 3% in the UK.
It is high.
I think perhaps for some people it's useful, because if you were about to get maybe other finance and things, if it's in the same country that you're a resident in, obviously that will appear on another check. So if you were just about to get a mortgage and the mortgage company were looking at everything that you had finance on, I think it probably wouldn't show up if you had got the finance from a different country. Whether or not it should, I will answer this question because I know you guys are going to want to know. Does it show up on your UK credit file? No. Oh, there we go.
It does not.
There we go then.
So there's to answer that question.
Maybe it should.
I'm not gonna get into that, but the answer is no, it doesn't. You're in a different country, so a lot of people like to finance it through Disney for that reason, because effectively it does not show up on your credit file. However, what I would recommend that you do potentially is, if you do want to buy through Disney and you want to use their finance directly, there's nothing to stop you then, maybe a year or two later, because their finance is 10 years, so you pay it over 10 years. You could refinance it in a couple of years. So you can always see on your DVC login, when you log into the website, what the payoff amount is, and you could then do it as a loan with a cheaper interest rate. So Disney themselves, actually, when we bought in, they recommended to us that you do not take 10 whole years using that high interest rate to pay it off, because obviously then you are paying quite a bit of interest. So yeah, you could do it directly with Disney while you're there on vacation, and then come home and maybe the following year or the next year or whatever, refinance it to a lower interest rate later on. So that could be an option. So next question, can you explain the resale market? Is it difficult to purchase that way? Over to Becky, because I've never done it.
Couldn't be more easy, like shopping for anything else online. I guess I was a little bit hesitant to start looking at these sites that I don't know if they are a legit site, so you kind of do your due diligence, and I listened to other YouTube videos on DVC and sort of listened out for what they were, the people that they used. Ours, I'm sure, we're called Resale DVC, but there is also DVC Resale.
DVC buy resale is another one.
So there's loads. I can't.
It's like estate agents.
I can't talk about anybody else's, legitimacy other than Resale DVC, who I used, and on the day I used them, they were a real company. They existed. At least I've got the paperwork to suggest that I do have the points, and Disney seem to agree with them, so that's good. You can organise it by, it's just like a big grid of every contract that's available, just like eBay or something.
It's like Rightmove when you're looking at, again, when you're looking at houses, you're looking at a list of...
We knew that we wanted to buy into Animal Kingdom Lodge, so you can sort of filter it by just Animal Kingdom Lodge, and we knew that we wanted in the region of 100 points. So I put the kind of parameters as 90, and it seemed 125 is quite a common amount.
Yeah,
so then
those,
then it shows a list of every contract that's being sold. So then you're looking at, it's not necessarily the cheapest one per point is the best one, because that might have got all of last year's points used, all of this year's points used, and all of next year's points used. So you're going to have to wait for 2 years before you've even got any points. So the price is dependent on a few of those things. Have they used all their points and the following ones to come? Have they banked any? And what kind of time of year the points refresh? That's called use year, but we'll go into that shortly. So we basically found the amount of points with the kind of use year that was going to be useful to us, and we offered, I think we put the offer in of 131. I think the advertised points were something like $138 a point was what they were advertised at. So you then basically hit I'd like to buy this, or send us a question, you click it, you put your email address in, you say you're interested, and they then contact you.
Yep. And
an email within a couple of hours, I think. That was it.
I'm sure it's very quick, because they're looking to obviously sell these. There is something that you do need to be aware of in terms of Disney buying the points back. Do you want to just explain that? Because that's a bit of a minefield.
Yeah, so it's not a case of, quick, I'm going to buy the cheapest one, because basically what happens is Victoria decides she wants to sell her points. She approaches reselledvc.com or whatever they're called to sell the points. She says, I'd like to have, and she picks up a number that she thinks is what she wants to receive for them. They offer them for that, and I say, oh yes, I'd like to buy them, please. Before I'm allowed to buy them, Disney have the right of first refusal, which is ROFR, which is basically their way of kind of going, wait, you're not selling them to your friend around the corner for $10.
So say exactly.
£13,000 worth of points or something. So basically, Disney, when you buy the points from Disney originally, you sign a clause saying if you are going to sell them, you give Disney the right to buy them first. Now, if I agree, if the person who's selling them to me says, yeah, we'll sell them to you for $131 a point, which is exactly what happened in our case, it has to go to Disney's, I don't know,
team,
financy people to decide if that's okay or not. Now, the person who's selling them doesn't really care, because they're selling them for 131 points to either me or to Disney. It doesn't make any difference to them. They're going to get their money because we've agreed a sale. So they then either sell them to me or Disney buy them, and I miss out. So that is a bit so it go eventually, when you've agreed the amount you're going to buy them from, that then gets sent to Disney by, not by me, but by the people that were selling the points, the kind of the estate agent company, I guess. And Disney then have the opportunity, and I think it's usually within 30 days they then get back to you to say whether yes, you can have them, or no, Disney have enacted their right of first refusal, which is where Disney buy them instead. Like I say, the person selling doesn't care,
as long as they get their money.
They're getting their money anyway. They probably would rather a person buy them to enjoy them, but I guess it's similar to selling your house, and you're either selling it to a buy-to-let person, or you're selling it to a lovely, wholesome family that you want to think is living in your nice house now. You're kind of selling it. You probably don't really care. You just need the money because you're selling it.
Exactly that.
So that's the right of first refusal. And that is quite, a nail-biting kind of few days when you think, oh, did the price we offer, did the kind of lowball price we offer, is that going to... are they going to accept it? Should we have offered an extra couple of dollars a point to make sure Disney don't think it's selling too cheaply? And you're waiting and you're waiting, and then you get the email saying, yeah, it's all good. Disney have okayed it.
And effectively, in terms of how Disney decide whether to okay it or not, they are, as Becky said, just looking to make sure they're not getting sold too cheaply, so the product isn't being devalued effectively. And also they then do have some inventory to sell directly back to people. So as I was saying, people sometimes do want to buy Boardwalk or Animal Kingdom Lodge directly from Disney. And again, we're going to talk about why you might want to do that in a minute. And Disney want to be able to have some contracts available for people to buy if they want to do that. So that's why they buy some of them back. It is kind of like buying a house. And that's why when we say this process sounds kind of complicated, is because it kind of is. You know, in terms of resale and selling it and stuff, it's just not necessarily the most straightforward thing. When you hear Disney Vacation Club, it sounds very fluffy and like, oh, I want to be part of Disney Vacation Club. But actually, you do, everybody does in a way, but it is actually buying and selling real estate effectively. So it is quite complicated in terms of the processes, if that makes sense. But it is all done via what are effectively real estate agents. You know, you don't have to have a conversation with the person who you're buying it from and stuff like that. So that in a nutshell is the resale. You know, you go online, look for contracts that are for sale and
buy it or don't buy it. It's very quickly done by it was all done. I wasn't in America, I was in the UK. So they send the paperwork, you sign it, and it goes.
How long was it from start to finish, would you say?
I think it was about 57 days.
Oh, there we go.
From when we first went, oh, that contract looks quite nice, to us actually seeing our points on the DVC, Disney Vacation Club website.
Okay, there you go.
57
so
days.
That's not too bad.
But quite, you know, maybe sort of 2 weeks of that were, well, the points had come through. I rang Disney straight away to not that I didn't trust them, but just to check that these points are real. I have just sent thousands of pounds for a real thing,
where
right?
are my points?
And they were like, oh yes, we can see you on the system. Our system just takes time to change the sort of names and things on the contract. So, yeah.
Excellent. Good. Next question, do you get the extra DVC perks with repurchase or resale? DVC lounge access, exclusive merchandise, etc. So this is probably the single biggest reason to buy from Disney.
Yeah, this is why I've got a sad face.
Yeah, and not on the resale market.
Yeah.
So as I was saying before, I did purchase mine with Disney. When you do that, you get your blue membership card, which I think is digital now, but when I bought mine, it was a physical card. And that is your member card, as it were. So whenever you're accessing any of the perks, that's what you have. It used to be that you would still get that exactly the same if you were purchasing via resale. That has changed.
Doesn't matter how many points you're getting, because I think with Disney you do have to buy, if you want this blue card, you have to buy at least 150 points.
Yes,
so if you did somehow get them to agree to sell you 100, you may be dipping out on getting the blue card.
Yeah. When I did it, I think they were advertising 120 as the minimum. We were allowed to buy, as I say, they would have let us buy as low as 50 at that particular time, but please bear in mind that was 10 years ago. Things completely changed in that period of time, and it wouldn't have mattered how many we were buying, we would have got the blue card. So in terms of what perks we're talking about, it's things like the discounts. So you do get a lot of discounts in various different places, not massively high discounts in certain cases.
20% in the old merchandise shops, pretty good.
Merchandise recently they've been giving 20 instead of 10 with DVC. A lot of the restaurants you get 10% off, some places 15 or 20, which does all add up. So virtually everywhere I go to eat, either my annual pass or my DVC discount can be used. You also have other perks like the DVC lounge in Epcot. You will have seen me going there. The Top of the World lounge at Bay Lake Tower, which is now the villain themed lounge. The DVC after hours events, all of those things, if you buy resale, you don't get them. So that is quite a big thing. The absolute number one biggest thing for me though is the annual pass discount. So if you buy resale, you do not get the discount on the annual pass. And if you look at the different types of annual passes you can get, there's one called the Sorcerer Pass, which is only for Florida residents and DVC members. That is only if you are a blue card DVC person. I don't think, makes sense.
Yeah, I was worried that I'd sort of feel like a second-class citizen if I didn't have this blue card.
I don't think you do. No.
When I've spoken to Disney on the phone, any time booking my first DVC trip, which is to come this year, they have never, it doesn't matter that you're a white card holder or a blue card holder, it makes no difference at all. And just to point out that all these perks are sort of transient. It doesn't, when you sign your contract buying the points, even if you're getting them from Disney, at no point are you signing to say you get these things. So the fact that at the moment they've taken most annual passes away, now, like, even if you're a blue card holder,
you can't buy an annual
pass. You can't then go, oh, but you promised me, because they didn't promise you anything. All they promised you is your points per year that you can have.
Yeah.
Everything else is like a little tasty bonus.
Yes, so the perks can change. And in terms of annual passes, like Becky was saying, at the moment when they're not available for sale, that applies to DVC people as well. I luckily had mine already, so I've been able to renew. But the cost of the Sorcerer Pass, which is a seasonal annual pass, so I think I'm blocked out over Christmas and
some of the like...
Is it Easter? It might be Christmas and Easter, I think. That's it. So it's not much of the year. But it's a significantly cheaper pass, but you can only buy it if you live in Florida or have the DVC actual full blue card thing. So for me, because I go so often, that is a huge perk.
Yeah.
Now we're going to come on to it in a minute and talk about how often you need to go to make it worth it. That's one thing. Everybody asks that question. Again, if I was somebody who had DVC and I only planned on going every other year, that really wouldn't matter to you that much, being able to get an annual pass.
Hence why
Becky doesn't care. But for me, when I go 3 or 4 times a year, I absolutely do want to be able to have an annual pass. So we're going to come on to that a little bit more, but I just wanted to mention that is a huge difference. With resellers, you do not get those perks. People who bought on the resale market years ago, they're kind of grandfathered in, so they still do get it. But now that is, if you buy from now onwards, that will be how it is. So that's that. One thing that I do just want to touch on though, for me, for example, I purchased directly from Disney. I have my blue card thing. If I bought any more points in the future, I 100% would buy them on resale because I've already got the perks. So there's no way I'd go and spend $213 per point directly when I could spend 130.
You've already got the kind of the advantage of getting from Disney, so you don't need that doubled down.
Exactly, yeah. And back in the day when they would let you buy 50 points directly from Disney, I think they got wise to that because people would buy the 50 points directly with Disney to get the perks and then go and buy another 150 or 200 on the resale market. And
it makes
Disney,
sense, doesn't it? It makes financial sense. Why would you not do that?
But Disney do not want you to do that,
No,
so they've kind of stopped that now, and hence why you have to buy the minimum of 150. Okay, next question. Where do you own at? We've already touched on that, but yours is...
Animal Kingdom Lodge. Animal Kingdom Lodge, of course it is.
And are you Jambo or Kidani Village? Because they're different, aren't they?
Well, I've been reading a little bit about this. I'm certain that mine says Jambo House, but actually it doesn't matter. So I have read on forums. It could say Kidani Village and you've still got the same booking window in Jambo House.
Okay. So you get the 11 months.
That's what I think.
We're going to talk about booking windows as well.
That's what I think. Yeah. I mean, mine's definitely Jambo House, and that's one I can have because I've already booked it. Yeah. So could I have booked Kidani Village? That's interesting. I don't know.
Maybe you'll find out in the future.
But I don't want to stay in Kidani. Yes, Kidani's lovely.
I like Kidani Village.
Yeah. It's not Jambo House, though, is it? Let's be honest. Is it Jambo House? No.
It doesn't. Kidani Village is like an extension of Animal Kingdom Lodge. So the main lobby is over at Jambo House.
It's still beautiful. It's still beautiful.
Yeah, Kidani Village is
beautiful.
Jambo House. But yeah, Becky's a Jambo House person, and I own at the Grand Floridian, as I mentioned before. Next one, any regrets on purchasing? Would you buy again? Obviously, you've not long done yours, so that's a hard question. But do you have any regrets?
No, I don't have any regrets. I'm really glad. Well, I wish I'd have done it earlier because then it's cheaper. Do I wish that when I very first came to Florida with you, and it was 2017, and I was sat there in the DVC lounge, DVC tour, on my Barclays app trying to see how quickly I would be able to borrow. I think it was about £7,000 I was looking on a personal loan because I was going to buy 50 points, and at that point, if I had have bought 50 points, I would have a blue card.
And they would let you. They would have let you do that.
Yeah. You know, that's how it is.
Yeah.
I didn't do it then. I didn't.
No, and you've ended up with it.
And I've ended up, not the blue card, but it, for me that won't make much difference, which I'm sure we'll talk about shortly.
That must be a tiny bit galling when you think about it.
A little bit,
maybe,
but then I didn't spend £7,000.
True.
When I didn't have £7,000 to spend.
In that
moment.
Yeah.
So I think I'm glad we did it when we did, because very, very shortly after, the pound and the dollar prices really went badly in, not our favour. So I'm glad that I quickly got in when we could. Otherwise, it probably would have cost us about another £1,500, which may have made the difference of us not actually doing it at all. So
that's another massive thing that we should mention if you're in the UK or in other countries, is the exchange rate. So while mine 10 years ago directly with Disney was 138 or whatever we said a point, and yours was 131, the exchange rate back when I did mine,
so it was even cheaper,
was
for
probably
you.
even cheaper
Yeah.
for me. Now the exchange rate is pretty terrible. Obviously that's not great. And if you're doing the finance with Disney, when you pay your monthly loan back, it can vary quite a lot based on what the exchange rate is. So you can find your monthly payment can go up and down. So that's something to think about as well. The problem is you can never really predict what the exchange rate is going to do.
If you can, tell us how you're doing
please
it.
tell us how you're doing it, yeah, because then you definitely would want to think about, maybe if you knew in 5 months the exchange rate was going to be way better than it is now, you'd obviously wait, you would think, wouldn't you? But there we go. So just bear that in mind as well. Oh, and I didn't answer about regrets. No, I don't regret it, definitely not. At the time, like I say, we did our finances and worked it out. It was 10 years ago now, so obviously that's that. Somebody did ask me the question, did I get the DVC in the divorce? Which is kind of a personal question, kind of not. Yes, I did, because although Ian has always enjoyed our Disney trips,
it made sense for you to keep
it
DVC,
made sense. He didn't really want
Yeah.
it because he just wouldn't go often enough. Well, yeah, so I definitely wanted to keep the DVC, so we worked that out between us. But yes, I have custody of it, if that's the question. Yes, I do. Is renting DVC points a good option for a budget trip? What are the pros and cons?
So I nearly did this when we went for our honeymoon. Had it not been kind of just post crazy COVID times, I really wanted to go and stay in the Animal Kingdom Lodge, just for a lovely holiday, yes, but also to open my husband's eyes to see how amazing it would be if we could stay here all the time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't purely altruistic.
She had ulterior
I did
motives,
have ulterior
obviously.
motives. So there's, again, lots of sites that you can use that basically is somebody has got the DVC points, they don't want to use them that year, or they want to get some money for them. They can offer these points out, and basically it's on a first come first served basis. Some person pops up saying, I'd like to stay in the Animal Kingdom Lodge for a week on this date and this date, and someone books it. And they pay them, I think it's around about $19 a point for whatever it would cost you at the time. I think that varies. Yeah, so obviously when you do that, you are relying on trust. You are going through a third party, so I don't know what kind of vicarious liability it might be for those people.
You do get some guaranteed. So one of them I know of is David's DVC rentals. For the record, I've never used them, so I am not saying I have experience. I just know that is one of the companies that is quite big. And again, they are like a go-between to arrange things. So I'm sure there is some comeback in that sense. So that they must have ways of ensuring that it all goes smoothly.
Yeah.
Because effectively, you know, if you're the person renting the points, you are basically saying, right, I want to stay here for a week, and they'll say, right, that's going to be 100 points that you need, so it's going to cost you this much, and you say, right, that's fine, and then they have to go to the owner who is renting out the points and get them to make the booking. So they're kind of a go-between to make sure that happens, because as you can imagine, if you were just doing this on trust, I would feel quite... And I'll come on to that because I have done that before. Yeah. I think the most of the trust though would be you as the person renting, because you're also trusting that the person who has made that booking, so say the booking's for in like 8 months time, if they don't keep on top of their payments, or if they haven't paid their annual dues, that booking won't stand. You have to be up to date with your payments. So there is trust there. So while I wouldn't panic about it, because I would definitely use a third party company where you've got some comeback though, because you don't want to just be giving your money over to someone you don't know, and then you could potentially have a problem. But we're going to talk about, I think there's another question about that a bit later on. But in terms of the actual question was, is it a good option for a budget trip? I don't really consider it to be a budget option.
No,
as such.
It depends how much you were going to spend anyway. I think when I looked, for an example, this was in a September in about 2021, so, you know, your mileage may vary. Yeah. When I looked on Dave's DVC rental, which, again, I have never used them. They seem... The website's really nice. That's the only thing I can compare on. The website's really nice. It was looking like it was going to be about $3,700. That was about £3,000.
And also sometimes they have last minute deals, so we will talk a bit about this, but your points as an owner, you do have to use them or lose them at some point. And if you've got to that stage, you might offer them cheaper to be able to
So instead of a buyer coming along and saying, I would like a holiday this time in this place, you may have already made the booking, and then you're offering this specific booking for the value price of whatever you've decided you want for it, or whatever.
So on that David's DVC rentals, they have a page for last minute ones, and I think it will say something like a week at Animal Kingdom Lodge on this exact date, and then it will be offered at a cheaper price and stuff like that. So it can be cheaper, but it is not the most budget way to stay at Disney.
Definitely
the most
not.
budget way to stay at Disney is usually going to be just as a one-off, staying at one of the value resorts for sure. So on the theme of renting still, have you ever rented your points out? If so, how did you do it? You haven't, obviously, you've only just bought yours. I have actually once, and it was the first year that we bought them. So you know I go to Disney quite a bit and I don't have that many points. Again, we'll come on to that later. But at the time, they gave us some bonus ones, I think, when we signed up as an incentive. Nice. But they had to be used by a certain time. So we went in 2013. We then didn't go in 2014. So we wanted to rent those points out. Now, we did it through an online forum, which a lot of you will have heard of the DIB. It's a UK forum about Disney. I've been on there for a long time. I haven't used it in years, so I'm not kind of an active user at the moment, but years ago I used to use it. And they have a forum where you can rent points either as the buyer or the renter. And it is done on a trust basis, or it certainly was then. So we basically rented ours out to a very nice couple who wanted a few days in the Grand Floridian on a trip that they were doing. They obviously sent us the money via PayPal. We booked it.
Wow, I can't imagine doing that this day and age.
Yeah, they just sent it to us via PayPal. We booked the booking and sent them the confirmation number and stuff. They went off on the holiday. It was all lovely, but that is 100% trust on their side that they were sending us the money in. I think they sent half at the beginning and then half a couple of weeks before they actually did the trip. But yeah, that's how I did it. Now, as a person renting the points, I have also done that once. So I did rent points in exactly the same way from somebody on that website. It was fine. Again, the transaction went well. I paid the money, they booked it. So it was fine on both of those occasions. Would I recommend doing that? No.
I'd be very frightened to do that.
No.
Not because I'm not trusting.
No, it's
not trustworthy, but
it's nothing dodgy about it. No. Obviously, I've done it, and from both directions. But I don't think I would do it now because there's
too much riding on it.
There's a lot riding on it. The amounts that we were doing were fairly small amounts because it was only like a couple of nights stay. If it was like a week's holiday or 2 weeks and you were sending thousands to somebody, I just wouldn't feel good about it. I think I would use a third party personally. Having said that, I have done it and my experience was fine. So I can't really say that it wasn't, but do I recommend it? No, because you could have a bad experience.
If you had a friend that you trusted and you knew, then that would be fine, wouldn't it?
I've rented because Kate owns DVC as well. I've rented from Kate, so obviously I know she's not going to do anything dodgy. Oh, she better not anyway. Live under the same roof. But if it's someone you know, then sure. But if it's not, tread very carefully with stuff like that. Definitely. Okay, how many years does it last for? Is it the huge amount for X amount of years or per year? So I think we've kind of covered that, haven't we? So when you buy in, the amount of years that you are buying in for depends what the lease is. Just to explain that a little bit more in detail. So we said it was 2048 for Animal Kingdom Lodge, did we say? I wrote it down. 2057 for Animal Kingdom Lodge. So when Becky has bought in with her amount, basically you pay that up front, you get your 100 points per year, every single year until the contract finishes. So mine was 2064. So every year until 2064, I will get 100 points for my upfront cost that I paid. So you don't pay that again or anything like that. And that is where the value comes in with DVC. It's really a long game, I would say. Yeah,
you're basically paying in advance for your holidays in Disney, the hotel cost up front for the next 50 years. So our plan is to go every other year. So we have sat and crunched the numbers and worked out that if we went every other year until 2057, whatever you just said, then that makes it worth it for us. But basically you're paying up front for those holidays. Yeah, that's all you're doing really.
Basically it would cost Becky a lot more than whatever the amount was, 13.
So so we got 100 points for $131. So our buy-in cost, there is other associated costs, but our main buy-in cost was $13,100.
And that's for basically every other year going to Disney
Yeah.
until 2057.
57.
Now, if you actually paid for those trips, it would cost you a lot more.
There are other associated costs which we'll talk about shortly, but that's kind of the big chunks of money.
The big cost, yeah. So over a long period of time, yes, it is worth it. Because, so for example, for me, I bought 10 years ago, and I have 100 points as well, I should mention. That's how many I have. That doesn't even remotely cover the trips that I do. If you go 3 times a year, that's, and we're going to come on to how many points it actually costs you. So that will do 1 trip per year for me, depending where I stay.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. When Becky said she's going to go every other year, that means probably for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And at Animal Kingdom Lodge, for me, I stretch my points. So I can get 10 days once a year-ish. If I stay in the ones that are cheapest for points.
Yeah.
So I tend to stretch mine out. That's why I very rarely stay at the Grand Floridian, but we'll come on to that in a minute. Can you cancel whenever you need to, or is it like a never-ending contract? We've kind of covered that as well, so you can't cancel as such. I think you get a cooling off period of probably about 14 days or something like that once you bought it. But once you bought it, you then have to treat it like we said,
like
the same as a car or a house. You either then would have to sell it privately. Disney might buy it back in that process, but you are then going to have to deal with that. You can't just get rid of it or cancel it or anything. So how do the payments work? Is it per point or per month, etc.? So again, we've kind of talked about that. So you pay if you do the finance with Disney, you would pay monthly. The total that you are paying is for your 100 points, say, which at the moment we worked out would be
$21,700.
Yeah, so you'd be splitting $21,700 over 10 years. Disney will tell you how much that is per month. I believe you can pay it by direct debit these days. I've always actually, when mine was financed, which is not now, but in the early days when it was, I would just go online and pay it on the DVC website. But of course you need to remember to do that. But I think now you can pay by direct debit from a UK bank account. You didn't used to be able to do that, but I think you can now. So effectively you're paying monthly for your big upfront amount. But as we said, it's not recommended to take that finance with Disney and take the whole 10 years to pay it off just because the interest rate is high. So I would do it if you want to do it, but then look at refinancing it or paying it off earlier than that, or getting a much lower rate interest personal loan. I wouldn't recommend taking it out and taking a whole 10 years to pay it back, because you'll pay a lot of interest.
Huge interest.
Yes, if you do it that way. So the next question somebody asked was, what is the cost per year? So this is a good time to talk about the annual dues.
Yeah,
the
other cost.
The other cost, yes. Yeah. So you have your big upfront cost, which you've either financed with Disney, you've got a personal loan, you've had it saved in the bank and just paid it, whatever you've done. But you do have annual dues. Do you want to explain what those are?
Yeah, so this is kind of like basically their way of getting money for the upkeep of the property that you have an interest in. Kind of like if you owned a flat, you would probably pay
ground maintenance or whatever it is.
Or we live in a new build estate, so we have yearly payments that pay for someone to cut the grass in the areas that don't belong to the council yet, that sort of thing. So it's like an annual maintenance fee. That's different for each property. So you find the beachy kind of ones are quite expensive per year.
Yeah. Vero Beach.
Yeah.
Alani out in Hawaii, that's a beach one.
Yeah.
And what's the other one? Hilton Head. Those 3 are actually literally on a beach.
Yeah.
So the dues are expensive there.
Yeah. Animal Kingdom is slightly higher than an average one because of the great animals, obviously.
Savannas and animals, yeah.
But it's interesting to note, when you're looking at the resale price per point, those ones with the higher annual dues are lower per point.
Yes.
So it kind of averages out.
Yeah.
It wouldn't if you were buying from Disney themselves, that charge you the flat rate wherever you buy. But that is you can see that those, like, you might think, wow, why is Alani really cheap per point? Because the annual dues are higher.
They're expensive.
So you pay an amount of money, which happens to be, I believe, it increases slightly every year, because doesn't everything?
It goes up just by like inflation, so it goes up a little bit each year. Yeah.
I think the annual dues for 2022 or 2020, the annual dues for 2022 on Animal Kingdom Lodge were something like $8. I want to say $8.20 or something similar, $8.70. Let's say $8.50.
Yeah.
Split it in the middle. $8.50 per point. So every year we have to pay $850 as a one-off payment that's due in January the 15th, I believe. January the 15th, you have to pay your yearly dues, which is worked out on points. Obviously, if you own 500 points, your costs will be a lot more.
And again, what will have a massive bearing on that is going to be the exchange
rate. Yeah.
So if we went back to the days of $2 to a pound, then yours wouldn't be too bad.
It was amazing.
But if it's it can be higher. Grand Floridian is actually the cheapest of all of them for dues. So I did write it down. Grand Floridian is $7.33 per point, so that's not too bad. But when you talk about like the costs, that's not an insignificant amount that you have to pay. So when we're talking about the 13,000 and something, whatever it is, spread over 50 or 40 years or whatever, that does work out quite cheaply. But bear in mind, you have got that on top as well. For me, it still is worth it. If you look at the cost of staying at some of these resorts, overall it's not costing me more doing it because I've got to pay the DVC dues than I would if I was paying out of pocket. The other thing to bear in mind is that DVC keeps its value, so the amount of points that it takes to stay, that doesn't go up year on year, whereas the price does. So whereas at the moment we said for the week in Saratoga Springs Resort in September 2023 at the moment is coming up 1,884. In 10, 15, 20 more years, can you imagine how much that would cost? I mean, it could be like £6,000 or something, whereas I'll still be...
You'll be able to get it for the same amount of points now as it cost.
Exactly. So it holds its value, which is why the people who bought into Old Key West in 1994 and paid £1,000 or something for 200 points, they're absolutely laughing now because they're still being able to stay at these resorts and they only paid that. So that I'm hoping that all of this is starting to make sense. It's a lot of information, it is complicated, and you might have to watch this a few times to like
process it
because it does sound complicated. But ultimately, one of the biggest questions that people do ask me is it worth it? It really depends. I would say if you know that you're going to want to go back to Disney for the next 40, 50 years, then yes, it is.
And I would say if you know that you're always going to stay, or you're always going to wish that you were able to stay in somewhere, to be honest, even the value resorts, I think year on year, the price of that would probably work out to very similar to your DVC purchase. But when you think that you could, I mean, this is not knocking any of the value resorts.
No, I love them.
I love them, and that will never change. But that feeling of walking into the Animal Kingdom Lodge and thinking, oh, I'm going to stay here for 2 weeks.
And this feels luxurious.
I'll tell you what that's like when I stayed there in September, hopefully. But just the short time that we stayed there, you just think, wow, I could stay here for 2 weeks for exactly what it's going to probably less, to be honest, if you actually crunch the numbers enough. So when you're crunching the numbers, work out how much your yearly chunk's going to cost you, whether it's financed or whatever. Divide that by how many years you're going to have it for, and then work out what your yearly annual dues will cost, and add that all together, and see how much it's going to cost you per year. If you would end up paying less than that than to stay in Disney somewhere else, then don't buy DVC. If you're going to pay way more than that, which we definitely would, then buy DVC.
If you, for example, don't know that you're going to keep going for 40, 50 years, you don't know that you're going to want to always go to the parks, or you don't know that you're going to want to stay at Disney, you might want to stay at the Rose Inn down the road that costs £280 for a week or something, then it probably wouldn't be for you. But if you know you're going to want to stay at Disney, and you know you're going to want to keep going back year on year, even if you don't go every year, but if you're going to want to go like every other year or whatever, then generally it would be cheaper. But you are paying it up front, effectively. Which is the whole purpose for Disney, because they want the money to build new resorts. That's what a timeshare effectively is.
And they know that they've got you. They know they've got us anyway.
They got me years ago. They got me 20 years ago, so there we go. So next question, we've pretty much just talked about this, but how many trips would you have to do per year to get your money's worth? So I think we've sort of mentioned that. So I go once a year with my points. I go more than once a year usually, but using my points. So for example, this coming year, I've got a trip booked in May with my mum, and I've used my points for that trip. That will use up all of my points for this year. Becky is planning to go every other year, and you can bank and borrow. So let's just touch on that. So you have 100 points, you can actually bank them into the next year, or you can borrow them from the
forthcoming
year. So some people do that. They go every 2 years, say, and they bank and borrow so that you've got, say, 300 points to use in one trip. I tend to use my 100 every year. Becky will be doing a bank and borrow.
I've already kind of banked mine. There is a time kind of
constraint.
Yes. Right. There is a time constraint that you have to know about, the kind of banking window. So you can't do it after a certain point. You need to bank them sort of in advance, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
And so then I'll be using, when I come this September, I'll be using the points that I earned last year and the points that I get this year for the holiday.
Yeah.
And I will just keep doing that, hopefully, every other year. Or we might, so that basically that gives us 200 points to spend. And the holiday that we're going on in the Animal Kingdom Lodge when we go in September, I think it costs about 196 points, something like that.
So that's perfect for you then to do every other year.
There is a way we could, if we wanted to stay for maybe 10 days in the cheapest point per.
That's what I do.
Then you could go. Then we could go every year. But I think we'd rather do it every 2 years.
Yeah, it depends what you're, and when, so you can see now when you're deciding how many points to buy and stuff, that is entirely going to depend on your personal preferences.
Yeah.
I did write down just to give you guys an idea. So in terms of points, where did I write this down? So the way it works when you're just figuring out how many points you're going to need, they have different seasons at Disney. So the cheapest season is September. The next cheapest is January and May.
Yeah.
From there onwards, it very much depends. It's certain weeks because you've got Easter and then you've got like various different things. So they have different seasons basically.
It's all available. You can find this out online.
Yeah, you can go and look this up on the DVC website. You also have the different types of rooms. So you have a studio, which is almost all of my videos you'll ever see is a studio. There's a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, and then they have the Grand Villa, which is so many points, it is crazy
points.
But you have the different types. So obviously if you want a 1-bedroom, it's going to cost you significantly more points than a studio. But just to give you an example, a studio room, so this is at the cheapest season as well. I think Grand Floridian, there's also different views, just to say that as well. So at Bay Lake, for example, you might have a lake view, a theme park view, or a standard view. At Boardwalk, you'll have a boardwalk view or a standard. That also plays into how many points. So this is why you need to...
Just like it would if you were buying it using cash. So Animal Kingdom Lodge, we're going for the studio, but we're going for Savannah View because
you want
to see. But it would be cheaper to have just a car park or a regular view. Yeah,
so I think Grand Floridian goes as low as 120 for a week. So you can see why I don't stay at the Grand Floridian very often, even though I own there, because it would cost me a lot of points. Normally though, for the rest of the year, it would be much more like 150 points for 1 week at the Grand Floridian. That's more like what you should expect. Animal Kingdom Lodge, you're looking at more like 70 for a week, but it could be 100 depending on the time of year. Old Key West and Saratoga Springs is similar to Animal Kingdom Lodge, so around 70 points. And this is how I'm able to do one trip a year of 10 nights with only 100 points. Sorry, the battery just went there, so if anything has changed, that's why. We just had to put a new battery in. So yeah, that's how I'm able to do 10 nights, because if it's 70 points for a week, I can then do 10 nights once a year. It would be nice to stay more at Grand Floridian, of course, because that's my home resort, but you can see why I don't. I'd rather have, with the amount of trips that I do, it's better value for me.
You'd just use your points up in 3 or 4 days, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would. That's the problem. And sometimes, like with COVID, for example, I then had a period of time where I couldn't use them. So that has enabled me to have a few more points for this one I'm doing in May. So I am actually going to be staying at the Grand Floridian in May.
Your mum's going to love it.
She is.
She's going to love it.
I'm going with my mum and we're staying there.
To see this.
And we're staying at Animal Kingdom Lodge for the rest of the time. So the reason I'm able to do that is because I did have some banked points over COVID. But usually it would get me 10 days at like Old Key West, Saratoga Springs, Animal Kingdom Lodge once a year. But that is really stretching your points out to the limit. So it might be for you that you're thinking, actually, I'm going to need 150 or 200. Or you can do like Becky does and go every other year, and then you can use 200. So hopefully that makes sense. I know, again, it is quite complicated, but hopefully that does make some type of sense. Okay, next question was, what's the cheapest DVC option and what does that include? So I assume what you mean by that is just the cheapest way to get DVC. which would be resale.
Definitely resale.
Yeah. 100% definitely cheaper, and it's quite significantly cheaper, but just bear in mind, like we've said, that someone's beeping outside, they're ruining our video. Yeah, just bear in mind you don't get the perks, you can't get the discount on annual pass and all that kind of stuff. But yes, that's the cheapest route in. Have you ever tried using the points at California or Paris or cruise line? So that's a good time to come onto this. So far we've only spoken about using them at Walt Disney World. The good thing about this, and the massive difference than a normal timeshare, is not only can you use them at Disney World, you can use them at the other Disney resorts, so Paris, Tokyo, I think.
If you've got a blue card.
If you've got the blue card. So again, this is another big difference between mine and Becky's, for example. So because I bought directly from Disney, I can use mine at all of those other places. I can use them on Disney Cruise Line. I can use them using like it used to be called RCI, I think it's called something, but basically, in theory, I could transfer my Disney Vacation Club points to regular timeshare points through a company, and I could go to
Italy,
France, I could go to Australia. They have properties all over the world.
Adventures with Disney, I think it's called.
Adventures with Disney, I think, is a slightly different thing again. But the point is, you can do all of that if you've got the blue card. If you buy resale,
Disney World or
get out of town. That's it, yeah. So again, that's another big difference between the two, is the ability to use it all over the place. Now, one big thing I will say about this, for a lot of people, that would be totally irrelevant because they would never want to use their points on Disney Cruise Line in California. They only go to Disney World. If you only go to Disney World, you're not going to need to. I must admit, I have never used my points for anything other than Walt Disney World. I go there often enough that I don't even have enough points for all of the trips that I do. So yeah, it might not be relevant for you, but it is nice to know that you can use them for cruise line and other things. I think for me, this is a good time to answer the question. A lot of people have said to me, have you not thought about adding on more points, given how often you go? So yes, I have thought about it. I think the problem is for me, because I have the channel and because I want to be able to show people every different aspect of Disney World, all the different resorts, I want to be able to go to the value resorts on a regular basis. I want to be able to go to the moderate resorts. You actually can use your DVC points to stay in Pop Century, Port Orleans, Riverside, but the value is so bad.
I don't think I can.
You
I
probably
don't think
can't.
I've got
No, I think again, if you've bought resale, you can't. But I can, having bought directly from Disney. But for an example, Saratoga Springs, being a DVC resort, might be 10 points for one night. If you wanted Pop Century, it's probably 30. I mean, you just wouldn't do it.
Why would you do that?
You wouldn't do it because
why do they even let you do it?
It's a total false economy.
Yeah, you just wouldn't.
Yeah, you just wouldn't do it. They allow you to do it, but why would you? It's just crazy. So for me, if I bought more DVC points, I feel like I'm restricting myself to always staying at the DVC resorts, and I want to be able to show the all-star resorts, Pop Century, and I want to do a lot more of the moderate resorts because I've not done a lot of trips there, and I would be restricting myself to DVC resorts. So for me, it doesn't make sense. I like to be able to show DVC, but I like to be able to show everything else because the majority of people who watch my channel are paying or booking through Disney or not doing DVC. Do you feel you miss out on the deals regular hotel guests get? This is quite an interesting question, actually. I don't, because I still book a lot of trips using Walt Disney Travel Company. So just on that note, whenever I'm booking Disney hotels, I always book using Walt Disney Travel Company, which is direct with Disney in the UK. So I will link them in the description. It is an affiliate link, full disclosure. Basically, it shows Disney that you've been watching my videos and come via...
And when I booked my trip last year, I didn't use your affiliate link.
We're still talking about that. No, I'm joking. We absolutely are not.
I did feel ridiculous. I was like, oh my, what did I do that for?
Yeah, sometimes people forget, but there is always a link in all of my videos in the description. It's no different to you guys whatsoever, but it shows Disney that you've come via Disney in detail watching my videos. So if anybody ever wants to use it, I would massively appreciate that. It's in the description. But yes, I always book directly with Disney, and sometimes they do have really good deals. They have, I think at the moment, you book so many days. So if you're booking a week, then you get some extra days for free. Sometimes they have ones where you get gift cards for some spending money and stuff. I do always miss out on those because I've got an annual pass, and to get those deals, you have to be buying a ticket and hotel. You don't have to be buying a flight with them or anything like that, just the ticket and hotel. So I do sometimes feel like that, but having said that, I've got an annual pass. If I log into the US website, I can also get annual pass discount on hotels, and often for me that's cheaper.
Yeah.
But not always. I have had before where the Walt Disney Travel Company through the UK is cheaper than with the annual pass discount on the US site. So who knows?
Yeah, it depends what deals are on at the time, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I don't ever really feel like I'm missing out because I still book a lot of trips that I'm paying for and not through DVC. Yeah. So
I wouldn't feel like I was missing out because I'd just be excited that I got to stay at the Animal Kingdom Lodge.
I think it can't be underestimated how much Becky loves Animal Kingdom Lodge. You might be getting this theme
it's just nice.
It is amazing. I'm not
so
judging.
nice.
There's no judgment for me, but it is. Becky is an Animal Kingdom Lodge mega fan. So as far as you're concerned, if you're staying there, you don't care.
I'm already
about
living
else.
my best life.
Exactly.
Even thinking about it.
Exactly. So next one, which is your favourite DVC resort to stay in?
Oh, it's a hard one. That
hard question for Becky. For me, I do love the Grand Floridian. I have stayed there and the rooms are beautiful. I think my favourite though is the Polynesian.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, I do. It's a combination of things. I do love the rooms at the Polynesian, but I just love the resort. I love how close it is to Magic Kingdom. I love like the transport links. You've then got the monorail that you can go to Epcot, just around the corner at the Ticket and Transportation Centre, which you can walk to from some of the rooms as well. I love Ohana, although it is getting a bit pricey. Just gonna put that out there. I love Kona Cafe. I love Trader Sam's. I love the gift shops they have there. I love Kona Island Coffee, where I just love the Polynesian.
Yeah, it's a great. For me, it's a little bit too busy.
I know what you mean.
I like the hustle and bustle. That's really nice, but I think my second favourite, if Animal Kingdom Lodge didn't exist and I don't even want to think of that world, I would probably say Wilderness Lodge. Oh yeah, that's so there's a definite theme. I like the super themed, relaxing kind of vibe.
Rustic fanciness. Yeah. So Old Key West or Saratoga, if you were choosing between the two?
I've never stayed in Old Key West. Just looking at pictures of the rooms, I think I'd say Old Key West. And that's not a diss to Saratoga.
Interesting.
But Saratoga, from when I stayed there last...
Oh, you haven't stayed in the new rooms?
No, I haven't. It was really dated, so perhaps
it's the other way around now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, don't know then.
I now feel...
I'll get back to you on that one.
Yeah, Becky needs to stay in them both. I've stayed in them both ages ago and recently. 100% personally, I would pick Saratoga Springs for two reasons. They've had a refurbishment and the rooms now feel a lot nicer, and they have made the Old Key West rooms feel a little bit dated. In Old Key West as well, this really bugs me, I'm sorry, but I just have to bring it up because it's actually a pain. There is one mirror in the entire room that's in the bathroom. So if somebody's in the bathroom, in the shower, using the toilet, whatever they're doing, because the toilet is in the bathroom, there's no mirror in the whole rest of the room. I find that actually really annoying. So Old Key West, get more mirrors and then that problem is solved. But yeah, out of the two, theming wise, the fact that it's right by Disney Springs, I personally prefer Saratoga. How do points work in comparison to money? I think we've covered that. So yeah, you can stay at the DVC resorts using cash. So you don't have to be a DVC member.
Actually worth adding it in now. It may be a question, I don't know what the questions are. If you found that you were a couple of points shy, you can just on an individual basis rent, is it up to 20? I
want to say it's 24.
You can rent
20.
You can like hire almost from Disney a few points up to 24 points, and I think they're about $20 a point. So if you realised this 10-day vacation,
I'm 3 points short,
then you can just on a one-off basis buy 3 more points for that year, costing you $20.
You can do it once a year, I think. You can't keep doing it all the time, and you can weirdly as well, you can only do it at the 7-month window, not the 11.
Which brings us on to
so that there's booking windows, which is another thing as well. So let's just get into that now, because I don't know if someone's asked a specific question on that. In terms of booking windows, this is where your home resort becomes quite important. So at your home resort, you can book it 11 months out. Every other resort you can book it 7 months out. So for me, it is a little bit annoying because I rarely stay at the Grand Floridian, and that's the one I can book at 11 months. Somebody does ask the question later on, so we'll just skip over the question. How easy is it to get in at 7 months?
Well, I've never tried 7 months because I was knocking on that website door like 1 second past the booking opening window at 11 months exactly on the Animal Kingdom Lodge, which is why we picked Animal Kingdom Lodge. So we're going in September. I was literally on the date of my travel October last year on the website doing it. In fact, I was on a train. I was doing it on a train. I was that on it.
Yeah. If you're booking 11 months out at your home resort, it's fine. You can get in. If you are booking it 7 months out, it depends where you want to stay. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. So for example, I booked, my mum and I are staying at Grand Floridian for a few nights and then at Animal Kingdom Lodge. When I went to book Animal Kingdom Lodge at 7 months out, I easily got a week there without any problem. If I was trying to get into the beach club, I don't know what it is about the beach club, it is a nightmare getting in there. Even at 7 months, it is unlikely you would get a whole week. In answer to the question, it can actually be quite difficult to get availability at 7 months. For that reason, my biggest piece of advice when it comes to where do you pick as your home resort is this. If you are very adamant about where you want to stay, like Becky, buy at the resort you definitely want to stay in, because if Becky had bought in at Saratoga Springs but was adamant she always wanted to stay at Animal Kingdom Lodge, she might end up disappointed at 7 months. If you don't care, it doesn't matter really where you buy in. However, this is the biggest piece of advice I'll give you. If you buy somewhere other than, like, if you're not like Becky where it has to be a certain place, please always be prepared to stay at Saratoga Springs or Old Key West.
Because they will always have availability. Because
that is where you will always get in. Chances are, if you're looking for a week, 10 days or 2 weeks, that is the only place you will get in at 7 months. So you really need to buy either adamantly where you definitely are normally going to want to stay and accept. So Becky needs to accept if she ever doesn't stay at Animal Kingdom Lodge, she's probably going to be at Saratoga or Old Key West. For me, same thing. If I'm not going to stay at Grand Floridian, that's probably where I'm going to be. You certainly can get 2 nights, 3 nights, maybe even 4 at one of the others. But if you want anything above and beyond 4 nights, you might struggle at 7 months. It is tricky. Getting a week or 10 days anywhere at 7 months is very difficult, and that's just honest. I'm not going to lie to you, it's not easy.
And I think things like staying in the super value cheapest points per night place, obviously they're the ones that get booked up first, as you would expect. If you were to stay in the 3-bedroom crazy grand villa that costs 250 points a night or whatever, that's probably going to be free.
But if you want the studios, particularly,
if you want the value studios, the cheapest ones, you need to be booking those at the place you are, you know, your named resort, because you're probably not going to get those super cheap ones. So if you're doing your due diligence research, well, we only need 100 points because we're always going to stay at this place in the super value room, just bear in mind that might not be always available.
I think Animal Kingdom Lodge is the only resort that has these value studios. I don't actually know what the difference is.
I don't either.
So most places have got standard view, lake view, theme park view, for example. At Animal Kingdom Lodge, for some reason, they have value studios, then standard ones, then Savannah view, whatever it is. I don't know what it is about those value ones. I don't know whether they're a bit smaller.
I think they're probably either a bit smaller or maybe in
something like that.
The most difficult places to get.
You might be
really far away from the lobby or something.
Or you might be overlooking the bin storage area or something like
that.
I'd
rather overlook the bin storage in Animal Kingdom Lodge than be anywhere else.
But the point is, they have these value ones that are really cheap on points. But if you want to stay in those, you need to own Animal Kingdom Lodge. You probably won't get that at 7 months out. If you owned it, say Boardwalk, and then you try and book that, it just won't be available. And I have had, that's been my experience for the last 10 years, is usually at 7 months out, anything above and beyond 4 days is tricky to get. Other than Saratoga Springs and Old Key West, you can virtually always get. Quite often I book at the last minute. Sometimes if you're booking last minute, you can't even get Saratoga Springs or Old Key West. However, you can waitlist. So this is quite a big thing with DVC resorts. If it's not available, you can put on a wait list, and it's exactly that. You will be at whatever position you're in. If you're only looking for 1, 2, 3, 4 nights, it's much more likely that you will get it. If you're waitlisting something for a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, it's less likely that it's going to become available. So a lot of my stays that I've managed to do are because I've waitlisted them, and 9 times out of 10, I would say, if I've waitlisted 2 nights somewhere, 1 night, 3 nights even, it usually does come through.
But have a backup plan in case.
Have a backup plan. Sometimes it's come through literally a few days before, and I've been thinking, okay, have I got something else booked, or what am I going to do if I'm not staying there? So yeah, it can be a bit of a gamble with waitlist, but it is an option.
Look at it as a benefit though, because you might be able to do a split stay, and that might sound like a real pain for some people, but yeah, I love doing a split stay. So look at it as an advantage. You know, you can get to experience 3, 4, 5 different places.
Yeah, if anyone ever wonders why I do that, 9 times out of 10 it might be because I've got a few DVC points, but obviously I've booked at the last minute and I can only do a few days here, a few days there. It really depends. If you really can't stand the thought of packing all your stuff up and moving, then obviously don't entertain that, because it will annoy you. Having said that, at Disney, they will move your luggage for you from one resort to another. You just go to Bell Services, leave it there, say I'm going from Old Key West to Saratoga Springs, and they will send it there. That's a lot easier than it would be if you
lugging it
if you were
yourself.
Anywhere else.
But
it is annoying having to pack up your room for some people. They just want to get installed in their room and stay there for 2 weeks. This person asks, with the annual dues, airfare, length of a UK visitor stay, is it worth it for UK travellers? I think we've kind of covered that. I mean, again, it depends on your individual circumstances. I think, again, it depends whether you're planning on going every year, every other. It depends what your budget is, how much you can afford for points, because like we've said, you should really look at this as a long-term investment. It is not a cheap way to have Disney holidays.
No,
that's not what DVC is. It is a way to have good value Disney holidays for the next 40 or 50 years.
If you like staying in a deluxe.
If you like, yes, exactly that. Whereas if you are more likely to think, I don't mind staying in an all-star every single time and I will look out for the cheapest deals, then...
But to be honest, when you did that, you might find that overall it works out the same.
Yeah, overall, but
that's you know, that's easy to say when you're looking back.
Yeah.
And when you haven't had to find $13,000.
Yeah, and 13,000 is for a resale contract. If you want to buy direct from Disney, it's like, do I want to pay $22,000
nearly,
up front? Some people don't want to. Am I that certain I'm always going to want to go to Disney? Now, having said that, you could sell your contract. You know, quite frankly, if I found myself in some type of financial dire straits, or I needed the money for something else, I would of course have to sell it, because of course you do. Like it's a luxury asset. Like I suppose if you had a fancy car, you suddenly needed the money, you would sell it and buy a cheap car. You know, it's basically the same thing. Is it worth having the on-site DVC meeting? Yes, we already mentioned that. Definitely, I would do that. If you have an afternoon free or a morning and you're thinking, oh, I quite fancy, definitely go and do it. They never discourage people from going. They're not going to try and give you the hard sell. Even if you don't intend on buying, you just want to find out about it, definitely do it. Sometimes they do offer incentives. It depends how busy they are and how keen they are to get people round for tours. In the past, I've had gift cards. I've had
we had a $100 gift card last time.
Yeah, it's always worth asking if they are doing incentives.
They're aware that they are taking up sort of a couple of hours of your vacation time, which is expensive. So they do sort of try and
precious.
They do try and, you know, pay that back to you in a way.
But I definitely would do it because somebody can explain to you exactly how it works. Obviously we're trying our best, but these people are trained.
This is their job.
It's their job to do that, so definitely. First DVC trip is in September. When can we book everything, dining, etc.? It's the same. So 60 days out, you can book your dining, which is the same for everybody. When it comes to booking your park reservations, I believe you can just do that as soon as you've bought your tickets. Yeah, so if you've got an annual pass, you can just do it. If you buy your ticket from wherever you purchase it from, then you can do it then. So it's no different for DVC, basically. Do you think it's worth it to own at Grand Floridian versus another resort? Again, we've kind of answered that. People might be wondering why I bought into Grand Floridian. I've just suddenly realised.
It was new at the time, wasn't it?
Yes.
That's where your 50 years were.
Exactly. So when we bought in, that was the new resort. So it just happened to be that when we went and viewed it, Grand Floridian was the one that they were selling at the time. The good thing about Grand Floridian, I would say, it holds its resale value very well.
Yes, we noticed that was one of the ones that were higher price per point.
Yes.
Comparatively to
people want the Grand Floridian. It sold out very fast when it was new. Like I say, I have seen it online, but they might be talking about resale. And I know recently they have actually converted some rooms, so maybe they are selling it again a bit. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that. But it's quite a hot ticket one. Grand Floridian, people want to own there. So it does hold its value quite well on the resale market. So that is good. But I wouldn't suggest buying there for that reason, because again, I would never suggest buying it already thinking about selling it. because that doesn't make any sense. But if I could go back again, and like, would I buy there? Yes, because I wanted the 50 years. I wanted the longest possible amount of time. Like I say, I did look at Boardwalk, but I didn't want to pay the same amount of money for 10 years less.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I bought there. Can you use a DVC room if you don't have a membership? Yes, we've discussed that. You absolutely can. You can either rent someone's points or you can pay cash to stay there. Can you use DVC globally or only at one park? Again, we've covered that one. So if you bought directly from Disney and you are able to, you can use it in the other Disney parks, like California, Cruise Line, all of the, you can convert them and use them in different places around the world. I will say, if you do that, the value is not as good.
Yeah.
The best value is always going to be like at the DVC resorts. Yeah. But you can do that. This is an interesting one. Someone said, as DVC members, can you use the resort pools all year round or just when you are vacationing? So if you are local and you had DVC, because some local people do actually own DVC as well, you can't just turn up and use the pools. You have to be staying at Disney. Yeah. They did used to offer resort pool hopping. So if you were staying at, I don't know, Animal Kingdom Lodge, if you wanted to, you could go and swim over at Saratoga Springs or Old Key West or whatever. However, there were some restrictions, so you very often weren't allowed to pool hop over to Stormalong Bay, which is the amazing, almost like a mini water park that they have at Beach Club and Yacht Club. They both share it. You weren't allowed to use that. And as I understand it at the moment, when you go to the website, you currently can't do that. They're still talking about the phased reopening since COVID. Pool hopping is currently not a thing. The bottom line is you would just have to go to the desk at the hotel you want to go to use the pool and say, I'm a DVC member, can I use it? That is as much as
you might find that you could.
Yeah.
I don't know, the pools are so good at each hotel.
Yeah, they're all
I can't
amazing.
Imagine wanting to be bothered to go all the way somewhere else.
I mean, we hardly ever go in the pool anyway.
But yeah, I guess if you're real pool dwellers, maybe that's a real
could be a thing. Next question. We are DVC members, have been since 2004. What are your thoughts about the increasing cost of annual dues? So I did touch on that, how much more, like I say, I'm trying to remember back 10 years. I'm certain it was like 400, 420, something like that. And now this time it was 520 something. I think it might have been a little bit more than that.
Yeah, ours were definitely, I'm sure it was $800 and something dollars.
Yeah. And again, it really makes a difference with the exchange rate. I think the reason some people who have owned longer than I have, probably the reason you're really noticing the DVC dues is because the exchange rate is so bad. So it just probably feels like so much more than you used to pay in 2004. With the DVC dues, I don't think, in my personal view, they go up an unacceptable amount of money. When I think what they've gone up over the last 10 years, that is kind of what I expect. They don't just really put them up massively, but as a UK owner you do have to watch that, because it will always be an issue with the exchange rate, and there's nothing you can do about that, basically. Did you buy your points while in the States? Can you buy them in the UK? Yes, you can do it from the UK, even if you're buying directly from Disney. So resale, definitely you can. You can do it via Disney, either like over email, on the phone, whatever you want to do. You don't have to be actually out there. But I would personally say, if you are thinking about it, it would be good to go to the preview centre, talk to somebody and do it in person. I preferred to do it in person for sure. What do you feel is the right amount of points? That literally, it depends on your circumstances.
As much as you can afford and are prepared to pay for, I guess.
Exactly that, yeah. The more points you have, the more flexibility you have of what time of year you go, what size of unit you could stay in, a one bed or whatever. So it really depends on your budget. I would love personally to have 200 points, which is twice what I've got. I've got 100, but I do a lot of trips.
Then you'd be paying twice as much dues.
Exactly, then you're paying twice the dues. So yeah, but it really depends how often you're going to go and all that kind of stuff. But always remember, you can bank and borrow, and if you're not planning on going every single year, it can still be very well worth it for you. I think some people think it's only worth it if you go every year or all the time, but that's not the case, because you can do the banking and the borrowing. In your latest vlog, you talked about a box you keep in Florida. What's the name? So the name is Owner's Locker, and I think if you're a DVC member, you do get some kind of deal. You certainly used to. They partnered with Owner's Locker, because Owner's Locker are an independent company. They're not anything to do with Disney, but they have a huge warehouse in Orlando where they keep all of these boxes. When you sign up as a member, they will deliver an empty big purple box to your resort. You can fill it up with all of your vacation stuff that you only need when you're out in Orlando. and then next time you come, you just tell them what date you're arriving, and they drop your box off, and you have all of your stuff. So it helps for not having to ferry everything back and forth all the time with your luggage allowance and stuff.
Like a kettle. Not that
I have a kettle.
All of the DVC units have like a coffee machine anyway.
But if you want tea,
if you want a cup of tea,
if you're British, let's just get this out here. If you are British and obsessed with tea, which is virtually everybody, do not ever try and make a cup of tea in the coffee machine by running it through without any coffee.
You can do it, it's just disgusting. Not going to taste good.
It tastes bad. You can taste old coffee. It's gross. If you can manage to fathom the idea of making a cup of tea in the microwave,
don't.
I know, I agree, it's not allowed. I can't make tea in the microwave personally. I think it is an absolute travesty. I know some people do it, but for me, I went to 10 years ago, I went to Walmart and bought a kettle for $10, so it's like a US plug one, and I leave that in my owner's locker because I always need to be able to make tea, and I need a proper kettle, and travel kettles take about 10 years to boil.
Yeah, they do.
So there you go. That's a bit of advice. And with that box, you pay a membership fee, which I think you get a discount on if you're a DVC member, and then you pay an annual amount. It's not a lot. I think I pay about £8 a month. My owner's locker. Okay. It's not a lot. Are you using DVC for your next Disney trip? Will you be visiting the Festival of the Arts? So I'm using DVC not for the next one, but for the May trip. And yes, I am going to Festival of the Arts in a few weeks' time, which I'm very excited for. Already purchased DVC from Disney, but want more points. Is resale our best option? In my opinion, yes.
Yeah, I would say.
If you already have your blue card, if that's what you're after, and you've got your perks and everything else, I personally would have no reason to buy direct. I would want to buy resale if I bought any more because it's a lot cheaper. What is the cancellation policy if you are renting DVC points? This is something I don't really think we could answer because it would depend. If you're going through a third-party company, I'm sure they've got their own policies. When it comes to actually cancelling as a DVC member, it depends when you cancel. So if you cancel very close to the date, your points go into what's called holding, and then they need to be used by a certain time. If you cancel further out, they can sometimes just put them back into the use year that they were in, and that's that. So I don't know is the answer. When you're renting, it would depend what the company's policy is on that. You would have to check. Is it easy to book your hotel when you're a DVC member? Yes. The DVC website is very easy. Yeah, you just log on, you go to plan my vacation, put the dates in you're looking for, and then you also tick which resort, or if you don't mind, you want to look at all of them, and then it will just show you everything. Very easy. And then you just click through. It takes like 10 minutes. Very it's like booking on the normal website.
In fact, it's probably easier because you know, you've got exactly what's available, what kind of view, what kind of room in a list. You just pick it. Simple.
And when you buy in, they will give you your login details, and once you've got that set up, you are good to go. They have different telephone numbers for different countries, so you can ring member services if you need to actually speak to somebody. They're always great on the phone, very helpful, and it's a UK number, so you don't pay fortunes to
But you do speak to a happy American person, which is much nicer than speaking to
He says welcome home, which is always great.
Really nice.
Do you get DVC discounts at Disneyland California? That's an interesting question. The only time I encountered it, because I hadn't really thought about it, I was on a press trip in California, but I did go in the Pandora store to buy a couple of charms, and they did DVC discount, which I was really shocked. And actually it was a decent amount that I got off the price. So I think yes, some of the stores and maybe restaurants, they possibly do offer DVC discounts, so that's really good. And the one question that nobody really asked, but I think we just need to mention, is the use year. So as Becky alluded to earlier, as well as your home resort, you have a use year, and what that basically means is it's when your points reset every year. So mine is April.
Mine is August.
Do you want to explain why you wanted August?
So I wanted August because basically we knew that we were most likely to want to go in September. A, because it's the cheapest for value for points per year. B, because the children are at school.
Crowds
not
low.
Our children, the children. We don't have any children. So we knew that we were always going to want to go on holiday that sort of time of the year. You can still go on at other times, but basically we wanted to make sure that our points had come in, and then that we had the longest amount of time to potentially save them for the next year if we didn't go that September, for example. And because when we were buying them, we knew that we wanted to go on holiday 2023 in September, we knew that we needed a contract that had points still in the 2022 section with long enough that when the entire process came through, we'd have still time enough to bank them, as in save them to, you know, to bring into the following year. And I think you can't do that in the last 4 months, I believe, is it?
Something like that.
You can't do it in the last 4 months of your use year. So, for example, we can only do it up until, I think, April. So if we haven't used the points or banked them after then, we can only use them in that year, and if we don't, they'll just go. If it doesn't really matter when the use year is, really, because you're going to get the points every time. However, if you want to kind of maximise your almost guarantee of being able to use them or bank them or bring them, you know, forward into the year coming, we wanted to do that with as much kind of a biggest opportunity window that we had.
What I would do, if you're really confused about use year, because it is a bit confusing, if you just Google how do I decide what DVC use year, there's probably someone who's written a very comprehensive article. This is the problem with DVC, and this is why it's taken a long time to do this video, it is very complicated. Like I said, when you're hearing, you'll probably come away from this video going, what's just happened? It is quite complicated. Once you have it and you use it, it makes a lot more sense. But when you're hearing about it, you're kind of thinking, this sounds so complicated. And that is all of the questions that we got. Now, I dare say that there is some stuff that you are still going to be thinking, oh, I've thought about this, what about that? We've tried our best to answer everything as comprehensively as we can. Like I say, it is kind of an in-depth subject, so if you do have questions, please do feel free to put them in the comments, and Becky and I will both try and answer them if we can. And definitely do the DVC tour, because they will answer a lot of stuff as well. But we just wanted to try and tell you guys what you want to know about it, because it is the #1 thing. If I ever say, what videos do you want to see, what do you want to know more about, every single time without fail, DVC is the thing that everybody asks about. So I'm hoping we have managed to answer some of what you had. I've just realised Boris and the penguin are back there.
Oh, getting in on the old video.
Getting in on the action. Yeah, the Boris, I don't know if you've seen Boris in the vlog. That was from January last year. I'll link that vlog below, because when I bought Boris, he's the porg from Galaxy's Edge. But yeah, hopefully that has answered your questions, but do ask anything else that you want to know, and we will do our best to answer them. But I think a lot of the general questions are, is it worth it? And that is subjective. Definitely. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up. That helps other people to find it if they're looking for information about DVC. And I've got lots of videos coming up very soon, because I am going to be going to Disney World again in a few weeks. Which is very exciting. So I'm going to be there for Festival of the Arts, as we were saying, in Epcot. I'm doing Universal. I'm staying half the time in one of the all-star resorts, and then also over at Universal at Endless Summer.
Oh, nice.
So that's going to be really good, and something a little bit different. So please do subscribe if you're not already, and then you'll be notified if you click the bell icon when I upload another video. And yeah, just thank you for watching. I hope you guys are all doing well, having a good new year. Getting through January, it's always a bit of a...
It's a dark, rainy month.
Funny, yeah, we're very dark in here. Hopefully the lighting has been okay. And yeah, we will see you guys really, really soon. Hopefully Becky will be appearing in some vlogs very soon. You never know when Becky's going to pop up in the vlogs. It can literally suddenly happen, and she is suddenly there. So watch this space on that one.
I'm not going to Florida in February. Or
no, not on the February one, but you never know when we might just suddenly do other Disney trips. So just wait and see for that. So we will see you guys really soon, and I hope you're well. Bye.